On this countdown, we've talked about the two eras. The one where the merchants, the Devdhars, the Naidus, the Amarnaths made a big impression with their batting talents. And then another, where Dravid, Ganguly, Lakshman and Sehwag joined Tendulkar. Today though, and he's going to smile if he ever watches this, today is the time for the original Don, the very important link that connects these two eras in Indian cricket. A man who grew up on the stories of the Naidus and the merchants, then went on to build a career so special that it inspired the likes of the Tendulkars and the Dravids of the world. So number 11 of this countdown, where we've been talking about the events that shaped Indian cricket, sits the dramatic arrival of Sunil Gavaskar. Without further ado then, much like he did, let's get started. Dramatic isn't a word that I use liberally. But when it comes to the story of Sunil Gavaskar, you can't start the story without using that word. And why do I say that? You're not going to believe this. But right when he was born, a nurse accidentally placed him next to a fisherwoman. And if it wasn't for his uncle who noticed a birthmark near his ear, it's quite possible that cricket might have missed out on the greatness of Gavaskar. But while Gavaskar found cricket early in his life, such was the talent available in Mumbai cricket those days that he had to wait for a bit to play for the state. And when he did start, against Mysore, as it was called then, in a Ranji Trophy semi-final, the result was a fifth ball duck. The disappointment of this duck wasn't limited to the youngster. His uncle Madhav Mantri, who had played 4 test matches for India and had pushed for his selection as a Mumbai selector, was disappointed too. But it didn't last too long though, and I'll tell you why. Now remember, this was a match played in March 1970, and such was the turnaround from this little genius, with centuries after centuries in domestic cricket, that within 12 months, he was making his India debut against the West Indies. This was the second test of the series, because Gavaskar had missed the first one due to a fingernail infection. And I mention this specifically because by the time the series ended, not only had India managed to defeat the West Indies for the first time, but this young man from Mumbai had amassed 774 runs from just 8 innings, even scoring a century and a double in the same match. I was 10 years old and assisted my elder brother in keeping cuttings of that tour. Almost immediately, Gavaskar became a reason for, well, still a young boy, to immerse himself into cricket. Half a century has passed since, and till date, no batter has scored more runs in their debut test series. In fact, such was the golden run of Gavaskar in that series, in which he ended with 400s, that Sir Garfield Sobers would often touch him on the shoulder to get some of his luck and his magic. I told you at the start it would be dramatic. Seldom, though, have people who have started on such a high managed to sustain that. And Indian cricket itself has a few such examples. While a 3-year-long century drought did follow the high of the Caribbean tour, once it passed, it was business as usual for the great batter. The little master, as he would soon be known, was masterly with the bat on his captaincy debut, which came in New Zealand in 1976. He scored a century in Auckland and helped India extend their now growing list of away victories. But it was somehow always the West Indies that brought the best out of him. A strong reminder of that came the same year. Remember that old Calypso from Lord Relator? Gavaskar, the real master. Just like a wall, we couldn't out Gavaskar at all. And so back again at Port of Spain, a ground where he'd scored a century and a double in 1971, Gavaskar compiled a 4th innings 100 and along with a mighty G.R. Vishwanath helped India chase down a mammoth 403. And while we are restricting ourselves to events that changed Indian cricket, this knock actually changed cricket in many ways. The West Indies captain Clive Lloyd was so disappointed by his spinners failing to defend that big score that he completely did away with spinners going forward, subsequently paving the way for some of the most fearsome fast bowlers to headline the West Indies bowling attack and lead them to that era of domination. But while the world changed around him, Gavaskar remained the same prolific batter who just loved to bat and bat. Bat long, score big. The period of 1977 to 1979 saw him score at a staggering average of 60, 13 hundreds, 12 half-centuries in just 54 innings. One of them, in fact, came very close to eclipsing some of his best knocks till then. He came at the Oval, where just like at Port of Spain in 1976, India were once again asked to chase down a total in excess of 400 to win the match. This was the final test of the series. This was India's last chance to draw it. Rising to the occasion once again was the little master. He notched up yet another double century and took India to literally within a sniffing distance of what would have been the greatest heist. Eventually, India fell short of the target by just 8 runs. Gavaskar's contribution of 221 is still rated as one of the greatest knocks played in the 4th innings. But most importantly, the message that India were no pushovers reached everyone who saw India play in the 70s with a helmetless Gavaskar in their ranks. He finished the decade with most runs in tests, just over his brother-in-law Gundappa Vishwanath. I'm telling you of this list because never before and never after has an Indian topped this list. And this should tell you how influential Gavaskar was in changing the world's perception about Indian cricket. The impression that the world had of Indian batters of not being fond of fast bowling, Gavaskar threw it out of the window. He was not only unafraid against the best pacers of his time, but his records will tell you, in a way he, if you can say that, relished them. That was Sunil Gavaskar, a genuine superstar of the game who retired with records of most tests, most runs, most centuries. You can keep going, pretty much everything that you want as a batter. Then add to that the World Cup of 1983, a World Series trophy in 1985, and such a massive legacy. It's hard to deny that Indian cricket might not have reached where it has if not for Gavaskar's uncle spotting the blunder in the hospital and rectifying it that day. Now, for those of you who are here, here's a simple question. Sunil Gavaskar's only one-day international 100 came against New Zealand in the 1987 World Cup. That match is also special for Cricket World Cup's first hat-trick. Which bowler claimed it? So thanks for watching and do subscribe to this channel.